Both of my grandfathers were high-ranking Freemasons, and despite coming from very different backgrounds, they somehow knew each other, though exactly how was never explained to me. On my mother's side, my grandfather was a minister who spent a significant amount of time in Asia as a missionary in the 1950s. He was known for being progressive and liberal, particularly for his time. On my father's side, my grandfather was the head engineer for Honeywell, a man of strict discipline and deeply conservative values. Given their vastly different worldviews and professions, their connection has always seemed odd to me, yet there was never any discussion of it within the family. My maternal grandmother had a strange and secretive past. As a young girl, she was smuggled out of Sweden under a false name for reasons that were never made clear to me. At the time, she was only 12 years old and did not speak a word of English. Despite this, she managed to graduate from college at the age of 19 with a degree in English and was even named the May Queen of her graduating class. She rarely spoke about her early life in Sweden, and any attempts to ask about it were met with vague or dismissive answers. On my father's side, Christmas was always a major event. Extended family would gather for lavish celebrations, yet despite the importance placed on the holiday, Jesus, God, or any aspect of religion was never actually mentioned. No one ever said a prayer, nor was there any indication that faith played a role in these gatherings. As a child, when I asked why this was, the atmosphere would immediately shift. People would become uncomfortable, change the subject, or outright ignore my questions. It was as if I had stumbled onto something I was not supposed to question. My maternal grandfather passed away before I was born, and not long after, one of his close friends, also a high-ranking Freemason and a bank president, married my grandmother. It was explained to me that he did this to take care of her, though looking back, the situation always felt somewhat unusual. This same grandmother also had strange experiences throughout her life. She spoke often of seeing unidentified flying objects as far back as the late 1940s, and there was even a newspaper article documenting one of her sightings. She seemed completely convinced that what she saw was real, but again, the family seemed largely dismissive of these stories. When I was an infant, I nearly died from a severe fever. I suffered convulsions and had to undergo a spinal tap to survive. This occurred in late June, around the time of the Feast of St. John, a significant date in Freemasonry. Whether this had any relevance or was pure coincidence, I will never know. Yet, from as early as I can remember, both my paternal grandfather and step-grandfather seemed to regard me with disappointment, as if I had somehow failed an unspoken expectation. As I grew older, I found myself increasingly alienated from my family, despite my accomplishments. I earned multiple college degrees and served honorably as a U.S. Marine, yet none of it seemed to matter to them. My father, a former CEO of a major corporation, took it a step further. He went so far as to forbid any family member from attending my wedding. My mother, once a strong and capable woman, has seemingly lost her mind, retreating into a state of instability. At this point, I have no contact with any of them, and I am left with more questions than answers about my own family's history. I used to think I was imagining it. That vague, unshakable sense that something was deeply wrong with my family. It wasn't just the silence, the unanswered questions, or the way people changed the subject when I pressed too hard. It was the way they looked at me, as if I was not supposed to be there, as if I had stepped outside of some plan that I was never made aware of. I wasn't just unwanted, I was an anomaly. It started making more sense once I learned that Freemasonry is not just some club for old men wearing aprons. The deeper you go, the more you realize it's not just about handshakes and cryptic symbols. It's about control, influence, secrets buried so deep that even the people keeping them don't fully understand their purpose. My grandfathers were not just members, they were high-ranking. They had access to things the average Mason would never even know existed, and yet, their connection remained unspoken, hidden even from their own families. Why? I spent years trying to unravel it, but the more I dig, the more I realize I might not want the answers. Every family has its black sheep, but I was something else entirely. It wasn't just that I was different, it was that they knew I was different before I even had the chance to prove otherwise. My paternal grandfather, the strict, disciplined engineer, once pulled me aside at a Christmas gathering when I was maybe 7 years old. I don't remember what I had done to get his attention, but I will never forget what he said. He knelt down to me, gripped my shoulder hard enough to hurt, and whispered, "You should not have made it." Then he stood up, smoothed his jacket, and walked away as if nothing had happened. I told my mother about it later, expecting her to be angry, to comfort me. Instead, she went pale, shook her head, and told me to never bring it up, ever again. And that was the pattern. Little things, warnings that were never explained, looks exchanged between adults when they thought I was not paying attention. My near-fatal illness as an infant was always spoken about in a detached, almost clinical way, as if it had been expected. My survival felt like an inconvenience. Then there was my grandmother, the one with the secret past. When I was a teenager, I finally pressed her about Sweden, about how she had gotten out, why she never spoke about it. She stared at me for a long time before finally answering. "I don't know my real name," she said, "and neither do you." I tried to laugh it off, but she was not joking. There was something in her eyes, something distant and resigned. When I pushed further, she climbed up, shook her head, and changed the subject. After my grandfather died, I went through some of his old things. Not much. Most of his old belongings had already been mysteriously taken care of. But in a locked drawer of his desk, I found a small, leather-bound book. Inside were names, dates, strange coded messages, and symbols I recognized from Freemasonry. But there were other symbols too, ones I could not identify. Some looked almost medical, others felt older, archaic. One entry, dated a few months before I was born, stood out. "The boy will arrive on St. John's Eve. If he survives, we will reassess." The boy, not my name, just the boy. I don't know what any of it means, and I have been looking for answers for a very long time. Thought sex? Still in the Fred Marine, bro? I got boot camp coming up. Get ready for lots of screaming and yelling, cursing, and shit you can't imagine. You will want to quit every minute of Phase 1, every day of Phase 2, and pray to make it through Phase 3. Just turn off all your sensibilities and desire for comfort, and trust the process. You will make it through if you keep your eyeballs and ears open and do everything you are told with speed and intensity. Sound off as loud as humanly possible, and never question or even so much as roll your eyes at a DI. If you don't successfully navigate some aspect at first, so fucking what? Just keep trying without losing motivation. That is what they are looking for. They are expecting you to fuck everything up. It's the ones who keep moving forward regardless of the adversity placed before them who get noticed and rewarded. Not sure how this shit is gonna look with the whole COVID thing, but you are pretty much in a bubble the entire 3 months anyway. So my guess is you will get tested at the get-go, and that will be that. Good luck, and get some. And the strangest and possibly most fucked up part of the entire process is it will likely be your fondest memory of being in the Corps, something you won't understand and will not believe until it is over. This sounds like some real creepy shit. It reads like a family cursed by whatever they are. The Freemason connection is pretty obvious, but what gets me is the whole St. John's Eve thing. That's like some weird occult date. Could be tied to something much darker. You sure you don't have some sort of family ritual going on over there? Some sort of bloodline thing? Bro, did you ever do any deep research into those Masonic rituals? I'm thinking you might have accidentally stumbled into something, like the Illuminati bloodlines deal or something equally bizarre. You survived that fever thing, and now they are watching you. Maybe you were chosen for some kind of purpose. This is a secret society we are talking about. Your grandma said she does not even know her real name. What the fuck does that even mean? Maybe she's not even human in the traditional sense. Think about it. People that get smuggled out of countries under false names don't always do it for simple reasons. Sounds like she was on the run from something, and the family just does not want to talk about it. Could be some weird genetic connection to all of this. Maybe it's a transhumanist thing, or some weird project your family got caught up in. Wait, the thing about the symbols in the book, there's gotta be more to it. I mean, you said there were medical symbols too. That's suspicious as hell. Like, what kind of symbols? What does that mean? What if your family was involved in some weird science experiment or genetic manipulation? Maybe you're part of something bigger and more terrifying, or maybe you got injected with COVID number 2, lol. Look at all the weird shit your family has gone through. Your near-death experience sounds too perfect to be coincidence. The fact that your step-grandfather married your grandma could be part of some kind of ritual to bind you to the family legacy or control you. Why is nobody talking about the bank president guy? Why would he marry your grandma? Was he in on it? Why would someone from a different world, like a bank guy, get involved with a missionary's widow? Maybe he wasn't just there for the money, dude. Could he have been part of the whole Freemason power structure, and she was a key piece to whatever plan they were working on? I'm gonna bet the UFO sightings are connected somehow. The fact that your grandmother saw them way back in the 40s makes me think she was either targeted by them or was working with them. Wait. The whole "you were never supposed to be here" thing could mean that your family was never supposed to have you. This sounds like a poorly written creepypasta, not some deep family history. Seriously, the UFO sightings from the 40s and the cryptic book with medical symbols. What fucking medical symbols, dude? Stop. It's like you went for your grandpa's stuff and thought, hey, what's the most dramatic fucking mysterious Reddit thing I can make up? Dude, there is no Illuminati bloodline. The Reddit Illuminati moment. Meds right now, please. I was driving a shortcut from 29 Palms, CA to Albuquerque, New Mexico. 29 Palms is located in the desolate high desert east of LA. The shortcut was all two-lane road for total nothingness, except for passing through Amboy, CA. Amboy is a nearly abandoned town, nearly as far below sea level as Death Valley, with a dormant volcano and lava field on one side and a salt flat on the other. It was also, at the time, a hot spot for satanic group activity. So, I was driving by myself in the afternoon. I stopped in Amboy and snapped a picture of the city sign, just to prove I was there to friends who dared me to take that route to I-40. I got back in my car and proceeded to drive up into the mountain range between Amboy and I-40. Once I reach the top, I am driving north through a canyon with high grass on both sides of the road. Up ahead, I see some stuff in the middle of the road. As I approach, I slow down to see a red Pontiac Fiero stop sideways across both lanes, a suitcase open with clothes scattered everywhere, and 2 bodies laying face down in the road, a man and a woman. I stop 100 feet or so away, and the hair on the back of my neck is standing up. Being a Marine, I reach under the seat and pull out a 9mm pistol, and I proceed to chamber around. Something seemed very wrong. It looked too perfect, as if it were staged. An ambush? Was I being paranoid? Something was just wrong. Getting out of the car seemed unthinkable. It was the horror movie move. As I scanned the road, I saw a line I could drive, past the guy on the road on his left, swerve to the right side of the woman, behind the Fiero, and I'd be on the other side. I dropped it into first gear, punched it, and drove the line that I planned. I passed the back of the Fiero without hitting it or either of the bodies in the road. I continued forward a couple 100 feet and slowed down so I could breathe and let my heart slow down. As I looked up into the rearview mirror, I saw that 2 bodies had gotten up to their knees and 20 or so people emerged from the tall grass on either side of the road by the car and bodies. At that moment, my right foot smashed the gas pedal to the floor and did not let up until I had to slow down for the I-40 East on-ramp. I will never know what would have happened to me had I gotten out of the car to check on the bodies or stopped my car closer to them. Somehow, I do not think it would have been good. Sometimes, real life can be scarier than a movie. I haven't posted any green text here before, but I've read some OC and feel like I have a couple to share about my parents that they told me that happened to them. Be my dad and my mom. Dad is a long-haul truck driver. They are driving along I-49 on the way to Lafayette to make their delivery. Small note here, truckers have to log their hours, and back in the day, You could fudge them a little bit to make your load on time. Father wants to get the fuck there. Some receivers are notoriously slow. Father has delivered before, and knows if he does not make it by a certain time in the morning, he will be sitting there all morning/day. Hauls ass. Truckers have pretty strong bladders. Mother is complaining she really needs to use the bathroom. On pretty remote part of the I-49, but there are rest stops along the way with bathrooms, albeit dirty ones in most spots. He eventually gives in and pulls into one. No trucks or cars or anyone at all around. Mother gets out to use it. Father waiting in truck. He would go with her if there were any others around just to be sure. Father does not carry a gun, just a crowbar behind the seat. The cabs have air ride seats, which are pretty comfy honestly. He just idles the truck and updates his logs. Mother comes back and hops in the cab. Dad is finishing his logs. Out of nowhere, this, and these are his words, drug fiend from hell, jumps on the co-driver door and bangs on the windows. Completely naked, screaming unintelligibly. He fucking floors it, which is tough to do when you have to jam through so many gears. What he recalls he thinks was a female, climbed from the steps of the truck and on top of the front of the cab, licking the window and banging on it. He tries running the windshield wipers and sprays washer fluid to get her off. She persists. They are in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m. and this bitch came out of nowhere. He ends up getting to speed and starts slowly weaving the truck around. A 53-foot trailer behind you makes it hard to maneuver. Dad climbs to over 60 plus miles per hour, and eventually, this entity just flops off of the truck and rolls off what he told me he assumed was her death/dismemberment. Even my mother can recount this story to a T every time. I was born in Moscow, Russia in the early 90s, but my brother was born in 1980, and this is his story. I had him write this here for me. I was about 7 to 8 years old, and me, along with my friends, were the absolute biggest idiots in terms of doing dangerous shit. We would make smoke bombs, fireworks, etc. out of whatever we found, and did tons of other stupid shit. Russia in the late 80s resembled the post-apocalyptic wasteland you see in movies in a lot of places, mainly because there was really no law and order, so no one cared. You were able to buy crazy things off the streets. My father was once offered an old rocket launcher. With this, parents often just let their kids fuck around in these places, so we would be doing stupid shit in these abandoned buildings. Well, one day, we were fucking around when one of my friends noticed someone lurking nearby. We didn't really care. We were used to seeing weird shit. But after a bit, we noticed that the person was not really moving. They just stood there. When he noticed we had seen him, the man slowly walked into view. A large, bald man, black coat, a nice one, likely an import, which was expensive at the time, and American sneakers, also very expensive. He didn't really greet us or anything, but must have seen me looking at his shoes, because he just said, "Like my shoes? I have more if you want them. Come on." Now, few things really unnerved any of us, but this dude definitely did. If you know anything about Russia in that era, this dude looked like someone you did not want to fuck with. The kicker though, once he turned around, my friend noticed he had a gun in his pants. The second he saw that, he just yelled gun and booked it, and we all just scattered. I just heard the guy curse loudly, but did not see him again. Now, if the story ended here, it would have just been a creepy encounter. But sometime later, we were no longer allowed to play in that area. I found out much later that they had found another child beaten to death with a rock in that building shortly after our experience. To be honest, as a kid, I never really thought much about this until my parents told me about the death, at which point the dots connected, and I realized what we potentially ran away from. This was around 2007/2008 when I was doing my A-levels, and I had to get material for art. Haunted house just down the road, about 100 yards away maybe. Supposedly haunted because it sticks out like a sore thumb, has been arsoned several times. Council bought it but it was way too expensive to redo, etc., so they just left it. It looks creepy as shit, and surprised it's still standing. House is huge in our area, has like 2 acres of gardens, despite it being overgrown, etc. Druggies obviously use this place, since it is rather secluded, and needles are everywhere. Because of the rust and shit, I thought it would be cool material for art. It was, and I loved it. I got very high grades at the end. Take Dad's Nikon D40X and head round there on a Saturday afternoon. Check out round the back and find garage. Coolest rush shit ever, so start taking pictures. It's a warm day, probably 24 degrees Celsius, sunny and no clouds. Has been like this for a week. Feel like I'm being watched when I'm taking the pictures. Looking up at the house round the back looked even creepier. Weather suddenly changes, starts hailing the shit down. Leg it back home with what pictures I have. Sun comes out again and no clouds. Realize it hailed hardcore for literally 4 minutes. I really didn't see that coming and was scared up to the moment I arrived home. I swear to fucking God, this actually happened to me. 2005. Be 5 years old. My sister was 4. We both really loved that kid show called Lazy Town, like it was crack. Wake up very late into the night. Secretly go downstairs to turn on Nick Jr. while parents are asleep. Sister happened to notice me and goes downstairs too. Go to the TV channel menu and Nick Jr. was airing reruns of Lazy Town. It's the Boy Scouts episode. The broadcast was very distorted and keeps flipping to black and white. Sound keeps fucking up. We both barely hear the characters. Suddenly, it all cuts to black. What happened afterwards is something that we both will never, ever forget. The broadcast suddenly turns back on, and all the artifacts were gone. We see multiple young children in Stephanie's, the pink-haired girl in pic-related outfit. They were all naked and crawling over each other like an orgy. There were so many children that it filled the entire screen. Bodily fluids were smeared all over them. I remember fecal matter and vomit everywhere, but my sister claims she also saw blood. We see a naked man in Sporticus's outfit, blue guy in pic-related, beating off in the corner. No clue if it was the real actor or not. The whole room was dimly lit and had a yellow tint to it. We get really scared and turn the television off in fear and ran to our parents. Both 5-year-old me and my sister tried our absolute best to explain what we saw to our parents. Afterwards, my sister would cry and leave the room every time she saw something Lazy Town related on TV. My parents said that we were just having nightmares, and they thought that our babysitter was sexually abusing us, but we insisted that what we saw actually happened. I thought for years that what happened was just a nightmare, until my sister suddenly mentioned it, and all the repressed memories began coming back to me. Too spoopy for me story I've been honestly scared shitless to tell until now. I'll throw in some third-party stories as well if anyone has any interest. I wish like hell I'd have tried taking pictures. Anywho, was Halloween night of 2012. I was visiting Marietta College in southeastern Ohio. I was just stopping by to BS with college buddies and stay the night. What I had not realized was that it was Halloween. Too old to go scavenge candy and whatnot, so fuck society and its rules. I roll up like a boss man, and friends are telling stories of course, since we can't go out and steal candy from strangers and shit. Naturally, get in the spoopy exploring mood. Other friends back out because fucking pussies, so it's down to me and this other guy. Trick-or-treat's done with by now, and the only people out are drunk freshmen. We start off exploring the campus, which is supposedly haunted as shit. Marietta is one of the first cities founded in Ohio, way back when, so it's kinda old. My girlfriend, who works blocks from campus, says their building is built on old mounds and shit. Anyway, first, we visit the theater. Supposedly, black suit man with name I can't remember haunts the place, and the ever so typical Victorian-era lady in a white dress wanders about. Ends up not being spoopy, but at this point, I'm fucking wired from energy drinks, so crickets would have made me jump. Next, we end up in the fucking of the entire campus, all buildings connected kind of thing. Nothing in my mind more spoopy than a few 100 yards of black rooms underground with a 5-foot ceiling. Nothing too scary. Next, a graveyard with a Native American mound dead center. Wasn't spoopy, but I began to feel uneasy. Whether I was crashing because it was 2 a.m. or there were skeletons, I don't give a fuck. So we scared some drunks and got on with the night. Lastly, we visited the big graveyard with original settlers' graves and whatnot. This place was fucking huge. Anyways, place was big, blah blah blah. We wandered on up to a big ass hill in the middle that was high enough to overlook the entire city, and then some. Finally, when we got to the top, we were all out of breath and shit. Have a sit and BS for a while on a gravestone. Big old gaudy thing at the top of it all, like who the hell would drag all of that up there? Anyways, we BS for a bit, and friend begins to feel really uneasy, so we decide to start our way back down. Friend starts freaking because he swears he is seeing shadows and feels like we are being watched. I figure he's just fucking with me, but as we get closer to the bottom of the hill, I start to feel it too. I hear friend stop, so I turn around to see what's up. He's just reading a damn headstone, but then I start hearing a whooshing noise and like very faint words. Odd flashes of light everywhere, and I see this black, shapeless mass booking it from gravestone to gravestone. Scared the piss out of me. Turned to ask friend if he saw it too, and he was already taking off when I turned to fucking ask him. I finally caught up with him by the fence, and before I can say a word, a deer jumped and took off from wherever the fuck. I swear, I thought I shit myself. After self-shitting experience and leaving the front gates, I asked friend if he saw it too. Silence. What the fuck, dude? He responds yes, and says that when he turned to run, he saw a big-ass black dog with glowing red eyes just standing in the path. So naturally, he noped the other direction. We both agreed not to tell his roommate because the last thing we wanted was him wanting to go out and trying to get us to go with him. Since that night, I have never told anyone but my girlfriend, but my friend has told me that since then, he has seen that same dog 2 other times. Once in his family's cornfield while visiting home, and another while riding in a car. He saw it running through the field, keeping up with the car. Whenever I bring it up, he gets really uneasy. It scares him, and he would like to know what's going on. After all of this, he has had a lot of bad luck. His mom had gotten sick and passed. College told him he could not come back. He's had a lot of health problems himself, etc. He is my best friend, so I'd like to know if any of this may have a connection, or if maybe he just has really bad luck. There are some other things that may have played a factor, but I will only bring those up if needed, I suppose. Be me. Be in second floor, that is just one big room where me and bro sleep. Like 2 a.m. or something. Playing on my PC. Decide to sleep. Brother is completely out of it. Closed loud ass windows, and he did not even react. Get on bed and turn light off. Hear something like a door creak downstairs. Think nothing of it. Maybe just mom or sister. I think they were awake at the time. Fall asleep. Mom tells me what happened. For some reason, I have zero memory of it. She was in the big bed with my sister. Sister was sleeping. Mom heard what sounded like someone playing with a door, moving it over and over. She got scared and was too spooked to go and look. I feel confused, then remember I also heard that. When I fell asleep, my bro woke up and also heard the sound. I go around looking if the windows were open. Nope, she closed all of them before going to bed. That door was on the room where my older brother used to be at. He left to his own house a few days before. That was weird. Then a month or so later, he almost died due to a motorcycle accident, which wasn't his fault really. Some high dude on a bicycle crossed while he was going quite fast, and trying to dodge him, he smashed his abdomen on a wooden pole or something like that, breaking a blood vessel. He was getting up, and some bro firefighter stopped him and made him lie down. Apparently, when accidents like these happen, standing up can be very bad.